Hey, Jeff, I just realized since we don't have any music with the countdown, I could sing for everyone.
Oh, you could. That would be pretty fun.
I'd be
I
like,
wonder, I
10,
wonder
9, 8, 7, 6,
yeah, you're
5,
singing a little bit fast, actually.
4, 3, 2, 1.
You're
And here we are.
ridiculous. Sometimes I really wonder, do you like my new banner? What do you think?
Oh, wow. Oh yeah, that was your birthday
Yeah.
present, right?
Yeah, birthday present. I just put it on my bookshelf because I was like, let's put it there for now because I don't know what to do
Very
with it.
cool. Very cool. Welcome,
Right on.
everybody, to the Last Life Ever podcast. I'm your host, Jillian Sidoti, and this is Jeffrey Holst, my co host,
That's correct.
the man of the hour, the most interesting man in the world.
That's what my banner says. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration. I think there's probably 2 or 3 people more interesting than me. I'm working on it, though.
Well, our guest today is super interesting.
Yes, but not a man, so not as much competition for that title.
Her name is Bracha Goetz, and she's a children's author, but her history is fascinating. And one of her summaries for one of her books actually made me cry.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's
it made
I
me
gotta hear
tear up
that
a little
story.
bit. Yeah, so we'll talk to her right after this.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Really thrilled to be here.
So, Bracha, you have a really interesting background. Before we get into your books, you went to Harvard, but then did you go to medical school?
Yes, for 1 year.
What made medical school so traumatizing that 1 year was enough?
It wasn't that the medical school was traumatizing. I was really traumatized inside of me. That's the thing. I wasn't planning to drop out of medical school, but I had what I would say, food addictions that were really driving me crazy and getting worse and worse. And by the time I was in medical school, I had such bizarre behaviors that I felt like I was going crazy. I actually visited with the school psychiatrist, and I met with him, and it was really interesting. He was Japanese, and he said to me, I told him everything that I'd kept secret from everybody. And addicts are really secretive about what they're doing. So I told him everything. And he said to me, I think you think you're crazier than you are. He said, when you go to Israel this summer, I think you're going to find yourself spiritually. And that's what you need. I mean, this he didn't even know me. I don't know how he knew to say a thing like that. It was the strangest thing. But suddenly I felt a lot better after I met with him. Okay. And it's exactly what happened. I ended up not coming back for 10 years. I had a 6-week break between my first and second year. I came back 10 years later with a husband and 5 of my 6 children too.
So
Wow.
So you spent that whole time in Israel then, that
Yes.
10 years?
Yes.
And where were you in Israel? What part of the country?
In Jerusalem mainly, and then in the Judean hills where we settled there. But it was interesting because when my parents, when they would tell me to go there, they go, great, but like, do whatever you want, but don't connect with this one guy I knew from my childhood who became a religious fanatic. So right away, I contacted him, and I was like, I sent him one of those aerograms in those days, and I said, I want to be a psychiatrist, but I don't even know what the purpose to life is. So can you help me? And he was like, yeah, don't worry about helping your patients. I'm going to help you find out what the purpose to life is when you get here. So
Wow.
that's kind of what happened.
Wow.
That's great.
Well, I mean, like, I think that's amazing that you quit, you dropped out, because I dropped out of a year of law school, and I went back, and I wish I never went back.
That's not true. If you hadn't gone back, you would have never met me.
This is true. This is true. But
It probably wasn't worth it. You'd probably be better off not knowing me. You're
stop.
probably right.
No, but I had such a fear of failure at the time that I was like, well, I can't be a quitter. I can't. And there's I teach my kids not to quit at things, to keep working hard and try hard. But I think there's a time and a place where you got to go, do I really is this really what's right for me? Is this my purpose in life? So bravo to you for taking bravo to you for quitting.
I also took a year off of school. I don't know if you know that, Jillian, or not, but I took a year off as well. And yeah, I felt the same way. I was like, if I don't go back to school, I'll be a failure. And I remember I had one friend who took a year off the same year as me and never went back to school. And I kind of feel like he had it right. Like, I really do. Like, I think maybe because he knew he didn't want to be in school. He was like, why am I wasting my time doing this? And not that there's anything wrong with school if you know why you're there, but a lot of people just do it because, right? And that sounds like that's kind of where you were at. You were doing medical school because it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. So did you go to medical school before you went to Harvard then?
I had already graduated with honors from Harvard. I felt this is something really special that was granted to me. I felt like I'd reached the top already. I got to the top of the mountain and found out there was nothing there to see. And that was it. I'd been there already. I'd done that. I was striving. I was looking for wisdom, looking for the purpose of life for years. I figured at Harvard, this is like the pinnacle. The pinnacle of wisdom. I'm going to find wisdom here. But I didn't. I mean, even while I was an undergraduate, I was taking courses in the graduate schools, Graduate School of Education, Graduate School of Public Health, at the medical school. I was like searching for wisdom. And at the divinity school too. I took courses in all these, even graduate level courses while I was an undergraduate. And one garden party was a turning point. I was invited to this exclusive garden party, like children of the Kennedys, Rockefellers, Moynihan.
Yeah.
I knew in my dorm with me was Bill Gates, Caroline Kennedy, these were the people I knew, and Steve Ballmer, who was Steve Ballmer, the assistant at Microsoft. In fact, I like to tell people there was one computer in the dorm in those days, and they spent all their time in the computer room. And they were considered such nerds. Like, nobody really talked to them. They were just considered these really two nerdy guys, So it's really, anyway, but that's way off. But the point is, so at this exclusive garden party, I'm like, this is it. I've made it. This is where I want to be, And I realized here I was with these people. They were the same as anybody else. They were looking beyond who they were talking to for the next person. What's the next best thing? They too were just longing for something more. And also, what happened at this gorgeous, gorgeous day in May, there was a downpour. There was a thunderstorm. The party was ruined. The whole thing just flopped right then and there. And I was all excited. I felt, so I've been to this party now with all these exclusive strangers, and they couldn't stop the rain from coming down on their party. There's something more. I don't know what it is. There's something bigger. So that's why I kept looking for what's the purpose to life.
That is incredibly deep. Oh my God.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in searching for the purpose of life, right? Most people just sort of go through life. They just, they get a job, they get out of work, they go home, watch TV, they go watch some sports on the weekends, and then they repeat. And I think that then you start to feel this, like, what's the point? What's going on? And a lot of people just try to suppress that. That's where you get people like, addictions actually, I think a lot of times are a result of that, right? People just, like, they're going to drink a lot, or they're going to do drugs, or they're going to have a food addiction like you were dealing with at the time. I think there's really a lot of, it's just difficult, right? I mean, it's difficult to be a person, period. And I think that if we don't recognize that, then we don't move forward. We don't think about it. I mean, and that's one of the main things that we like to talk about on Last Life Ever, is about helping people figure out what it is that their purpose is. Mm-hmm. And okay, so you go off to Israel, and then you come back 10 years later with a family of 7 at that point. There were 7 of you when you came back. And then what happened?
What happened was my life changed while I was there. I found out what the purpose to life was, and that was amazing. And what I found out was not what I expected at all. I met this rabbi who's no longer alive, Rabbi Noah Weinberg, and he explained something so amazing, that the purpose of life is to experience the greatest pleasure possible. And I'm like, what? That doesn't sound like what a rabbi would say. It sounds hedonistic. It sounds, but what is the greatest pleasure? That's it. So the greatest pleasure are all the spiritual pleasures. That's what fills us with lasting pleasure. And that's why what I discovered is why I had the food addictions, because of the emptiness inside. People overeat to get pleasure, because when we're eating, we experience pleasure, and we want that immediate pleasure to keep lasting. However, it's never going to do that. It's never going to fill the emptiness inside, because it's a spiritual emptiness. So that hole gets bigger and bigger. And so the addictions never fill it up. And so addictions get worse and worse until we find the spiritual nourishment that actually fills us, because what we are essentially are spiritual beings. Even though we look like we are physical beings, that's the clothing for our soul. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So that's right. It's actually incredibly counterintuitive what he said, right? Like, because you think, okay, I'll do drugs, or I'll drink, or I'll have tons of sex, or I'll do anything that is quote unquote pleasure. But at the end of the day, you can do all those things as much as you want, and it's never going to spiritually satisfy you. It's never going to fill your soul. How do you satisfy your spirit?
Okay, I love it. So here's the thing. He talked about the pleasure ladder. There's 5 levels. And what I just realized recently through I read the ancient mystical writings about this ancient mystical wisdom, and it explains that there's also 5 levels to the human soul. So these 5 levels of pleasure, they actually correspond to the 5 levels of the human soul. So as we experience greater pleasure, we elevate our souls. The lowest level of pleasure are all the physical pleasures. When all the physical pleasures, the natural physical pleasures in this world, were designed not only to uplift us physically, but also spiritually. So an orange, it doesn't only nourish us physically, it actually uplifts our soul. How? When we experience gratitude. When we experience gratitude for the gifts that we've been given in life, that's how we elevate our soul. So we do it mindfully. We recognize, like, this amazing peel on the orange. It's individually packaged. That's how we got the idea to individually package things, So this peel can keep the juiciness in for months, and it tastes delicious, it smells delicious, and it becomes bright and beautiful when it's ripest on the tree. That's when it's telling us we're ready. So I write about this in my children's book. So this is how we get to appreciate all the natural things in this world are designed to uplift us physically and spiritually. And then the next level up is love. That's when we appreciate another. What do we value about, what virtues about another do we appreciate? So each level, in order to experience pleasure, what's the price we have to pay? Gratitude. That's all we pay in order to experience pleasure. Pleasure in the physical world, or in the next, pleasure of another person. That's love. The next level up is meaning. We have gratitude for the world, so we give back to the world. That fills us with even more lasting pleasure. And the next level up is creativity. When we put a part of ourselves into the world, that gives us even more pleasure and a greater sense of gratitude that we're a part. Each level up brings us more connection as well. And the highest level is transcendence, when we recognize that we are all connected, and we're all connected to source. The same energy source is connecting all of us and everything and everybody. And we, when we recognize that, that's the ultimate in gratitude that we can experience. So these are the 5 levels of pleasure that uplift our souls. And on the lowest level, it uplifts our body as well.
Well,
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll tell you, for me, I definitely feel that intuitively feels very correct, right? I never really heard it explained that way, but I know that when I started giving back, and I started to feel a lot more pleasure in my life. And then especially when I got creative, right? And I started producing stuff. It didn't matter if it was writing fiction or just doing a podcast. It's giving my thoughts to the world, right? And that has been the last few years of my life. I've been really focused on that, and it's been very, very great. And I know that it's made me a better person by seeing how it affects other people. It's actually kind of an amazing feedback loop, and I love it. I mean, really, really love it. So,
wow, that was amazing. And anybody who's listening now, or if you just tuned in, you have to rewind. I guess you don't rewind anymore, right? You got to go back, whatever you do when you're listening to these things now, and go back and listen to that all again. Because I'm going to go back and listen to it again. I'm going to write down those 5 points and commit them to memory. And actually, I'm going to probably get into a habit of writing it down every day. Because, you write down that you got to drink like enough water, or you got to eat good food, or you got to work out, but you don't write down those 5 things. And if you write down those 5 things and do it every day, how much better would your life be? How much happiness would you obtain from that?
Exactly. So. And it's all about gratitude. That's the amazing thing. When any moment that we're experiencing gratitude, we're not miserable. And everybody could do it, even if you're in prison. A person that's incarcerated can still experience pleasure on all those levels. And an addiction is incarceration too. It's when you're imprisoned. You're imprisoned in your addiction. This opens you up to the connect. A person that has an addiction feels alienated, estrangement, alone. And this is how you add connection to your life. And none of this is from me. This is all the most ancient mystical wisdom there is. It's the instructions that came with the world, actually. It's instructions for living. That's what's so amazing.
So I'm going to interrupt just for one second, because we do have some comments. So Gladys said she needs to read these. Where are these mystical writings? I must read them. I know you're saying they're the most ancient wisdom, but where would you point someone to if they want to see this?
There is a book called The Way of God. It's written by an ancient Kabbalist, like this is from Kabbalah. It's written by a person called the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. He wrote the Way of God, and you will find all these amazing ancient mystical teachings. There's another book that he wrote too, The Path of the Just. And then there's books about the pleasure ladder written by Rabbi Noach Weinberg also, that explains all these things. So you can find them.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Oh, I'll be definitely getting that for myself on Amazon. But before we all get the way of God, let's talk about Bracha's books, because that's really where we're here to talk about. And you can get all of her books. They're spiritual kids books. I'm going to be picking up a couple. The thing is, like, you have a lot of interesting books because some of them are just about having good habits, right? Like just everyday living. And then other ones are really lessons in Judaic culture. So if you are Jewish and you want your kids to learn more about Judaic culture for their own purposes, or if you're not Jewish and you want your kids to learn more about Judaic culture, these are really they're really quite special. I saw you had one about matzah, which I never quite understood. So I actually might get that for myself, or mitzvah. I'm sorry, matzah mitzvah.
Wait, just to be clear. So now one of your books
are two very different things.
One of your books descriptions made Jillian bust out laughing, and another one made her cry. I want to hear about the one that made her cry.
Yeah, the mitzvah mouth, my very own mitzvah mouth, and my very own mitzvah feet. That made me smile a little bit, right? This one, I literally, sighed and I teared up, and this is it. It's called "Searching for God in the Garbage." Searching for God in the Garbage is an extremely candid memoir about overcoming food addictions joyfully. Welcome to a transformative experience that asks, is it your body that is hungry or your soul? And I just thought that was quite incredible. And I'm assuming is that an adult's book or is that a children's book too?
That's the only book I wrote for adults. I really didn't write that book because I like to write really short books. So this book wrote itself. All I did was put it together. It's a real documentary. It's my diaries, my journals, my letters, and I filled in the missing pieces. It's the story of, you see, the gradual, how I developed the food addictions and then how I healed. And it's kind of a psychological mystery because it's when I found my old diaries that I finally understood why, when I finally found the nourishment that my soul was craving, why was I able to overcome the food addictions then, which I had for years? Why did I no longer need the food addictions? Because my soul was no longer starving.
That is incredible. I want to just tell people, you got to go on Amazon, go to her author page, because she also has these really great books for kids, but about dealing with death, lessons on Judaic culture, but also lessons on how to break bad habits, how to swim safely, which is really important for a lot of kids. Let's stay safe. It only takes minutes for kindness. Really, a book on personal privacy. Just really great tips and hints and lessons for kids and adults alike. But I'm definitely going to get the adult book, Searching for God. Even though that's your only adult book, I'm going to get it because that did make me feel a little something about life in general. So,
Jillian, just for people that aren't watching the video, maybe they're listening. If you actually just Google her name, Bracha Goetz, Bracha Goetz, the very first thing that comes up is her Amazon page.
Perfect.
I just now put the link to the Amazon page in the comments of the video. So if you're watching this, it's there now.
Yeah, awesome. If you have somebody who's trying to break an addiction, whatever it might be, or maybe just coming up with a new spiritual habit. Like for me, breaking bad habits is one thing. It's actually doing the good habits that I find even more difficult, like listening to my Bible study every day, or meditating or praying every day and being consistent about it, or even just showing gratitude. Especially lately, I'm kind of like, screw, I don't care, whatever. So how do you recommend that somebody, gets in that lane of spiritual well-being and practicing these habits?
Beautiful. I here this is not a spiritual guru, but this is what Jeff Bezos has to say, the CEO of Amazon. Everything I have ever done has started small, and this is Amazon. Everything I've ever done has started small. That's all that it's about. You eat an orange. You eat it really slowly. Oh my goodness. It's like a whole different experience. And I read about this recently. If you chew things slowly, you only experience the sensation of pleasure for the few seconds that it's in your mouth. So why do we rush it down? We're not experiencing any pleasure as it's going through. And yet
Oh, wow.
I just realized that when I read that. Oh my goodness. And they realized that when they time people, when they're eating the last bite, they're doing it really slowly because it's the last one. Well, like your last life ever. If you take each bite like it's your last, you can't imagine what a spiritual experience that becomes. You just savor it and you feel such gratitude for whoever
Wow.
made this amazing treasure. This is an amazing treasure we take for granted. Inside of it are these pits that go on for infinity. It just keeps regenerating. It's an absolute miracle. An orange is a miracle. Everything in nature is a miracle. And when we take the time, we really can get into a state of ecstasy, not only under a starry sky at night when we feel that sense of awe. We could bring it into our lives all the time in just by the little things. Of course, one of the things we do in meditation is breathing. We're taking in breath and we're giving out breath. The vegetation is giving it to us. It's such a symbiotic relationship. And the pandemic, it taught us so much. It pushed us forward spiritually, all of us together at once. The things that we all took for granted, we suddenly didn't anymore.
Right.
We had gratitude for the most basic things like hugs and health and our breath. It filled us with gratitude so we can take this and continue to move forward spiritually with all that we gained during this pandemic. All of us that have survived, we have evolved spiritually from this experience.
I agree with that completely, by the way. I've said that before on the show, not in those words. I think you might have said it more eloquently than me, but I've always said that, the people that are most inspiring to me are people that overcome something difficult. And we kind of all have been through that together the last year or 18 months maybe now. I mean, it's getting to be a long time, but the thing is, it gives us a huge opportunity to learn and grow. And I mean, not everyone is going to grow from this stuff. I mean, you have to actually put the effort in, right? But a big proportion of people will, and I'm really optimistic about the future because of it. I think we all have the opportunity to have a much better world as a result of what we've gone through.
We're all changed together. Exactly. Yes.
I just hope we don't squander the opportunity.
Well, shows like yours help this. No, really. I was drawn to be on this show. I contacted you because I loved what you're doing.
Thank you.
You're getting people to have clarity about life, what fills them up, and that's what it's all about. How can you live your best life?
But when we first started Last Life Ever, that's really what it was about. It was like, I suddenly realized that this stuff isn't always intuitive, and sometimes you just have to talk about it. And I've learned through the guests that we've had so much more than I ever expected. I mean, even if no one ever watched the show, I think it would have been worth doing. You know what I mean, Jillian? Like how much have you learned on the show? Like, I mean, not
I learn in every episode. Every single episode I learn something. And I learn something not just like in life, but I learn something about myself. And especially from an episode like this, especially after, Jeff and I started this podcast on the first day of the pandemic. And little did I know that first day of the pandemic was also going to be the first day of a multitude of changes in my life, for better or worse. I can't decide yet.
No,
go for
it's
better.
definitely better. Let's go with better.
We're going to
But
go for better.
but but the truth is, yeah, I mean, we planned when we started the show well before we knew there was going to be a pandemic. We had, scheduled in advance. And as you know, because you've been scheduled for, a month or more already, we don't just do the show like 1 second and we're ready to go. We have to like actually, plan it. So when we actually, I remember talking to Jillian that first day and we were like, this is weird. Like the president, he just said everything needs to shut down for 15 days. Maybe we should just wait 15 days to start the show. We actually had that conversation. I'm glad we didn't wait 15 days because we'd still be waiting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here today, Bracha. Again, everybody, that's spelled Bracha, Goetz, Goetz, and you can find her books on Amazon. Please go out and get a couple of them. They look really amazing. If they're anything like the eloquence that she brought here today, I know you're not going to be disappointed. Jeff, any final questions?
Actually, yes, I have one more question, and then we have a question that we ask everyone. You've been writing children's books for a while now. I get that you do it because you want to help people. I think that's awesome. But what is it that caused you to get into writing children's books rather than like, doing podcasts or writing adult books or poetry or something? Like what was it about children's books?
First of all, I still have many childlike qualities about me. I have a sense of wonder about the world, so I can really get into a child's head. Those are still my favorite books, children's books. But the other thing is that when you write for children, you're engraving on their souls. So whatever skills I can give to children, they will have them for the rest of their lives. Children's books are so important. When I teach children happiness skills, when I teach them how wondrous the world is, when I teach them like the invisible book about all the invisible powerful things in this world that we believe in, so that like, I'm just going to say like gravity, like our thoughts and our feelings and electromagnetism, it's all invisible forces that are so powerful in our life, then it's not that hard to understand that we are invisible spiritual beings as well. And these forces are in our lives constantly. So I'm making all these concepts real for children in a joyful way. I take like the deepest concepts and make them simple so that any child can understand them and have those skills for life, right? Tools for life.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
really
Actually,
awesome.
it's amazing. All right, Jillian, it's up to you. Time for the last question, the one we ask every single guest of the Last Life Ever podcast.
So, Bracha, what does it mean to you to live your last life ever?
That's the wrong question, Jillian.
What do you mean?
What does it mean to you to live the best version of your last life ever?
Okay, sorry.
It's important. Part of the question, the best version. Only 57 shows in, Jillian. 57 shows in. Only another 43 more, and we'll be at 100 shows, and you might have the question right by then.
I think it's implied. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, well, I got to say, I'm not so sure it's my last life ever, but we do believe in reincarnation. But what I want to say is that to live your best life, we have to nourish our souls. That's it. Do what brings you pleasure, and what brings you pleasure is not this or that you have to bring into your life to get pleasure. It's we have an expression in the Talmud: who is rich? Those who are happy with what they have. It's appreciating what you have, because there's so much awesomeness in front of you right now, in all the parts of your body that are working, in all the illnesses you don't have. There's so much to be grateful for right this moment. So if you nourish your soul, then it can shine, and then you help other souls to shine, and that's how we enjoy life together. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm grateful for you for being here, for one thing.
I am too.
Really, and I agree with you completely on gratitude is super, super important. And being able, I love that expression, right? You said, who is rich? Those who are happy with what they have. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing,
Yes,
but I love that. that is very, very beautiful. And we really appreciate you being here on the Last Life Ever podcast. And if you do get 3, 4, 10, a million new lives, we're okay with that too. Just make it the best version of it, and we're going to be all right with that.
Well,
So thank you so much.
we've had, I do want to say something about that real quick before we let Bracha go.
Sure.
Because we've gotten that argument before. And so we always respond with, no, this is your last earthly life. That's
Right.
what we
Well,
mean.
and what I've always said to people too is, just to be clear, even if you're like Hindu and you believe that you're going to come back to Earth multiple times until you get everything right, the goal of that is to live the best version of your life, so that eventually you get to that last life and you get to transcend into the spiritual realm. So regardless of what your own personal religious beliefs are, we do want you to live the best version of your life right now. It doesn't matter if you agree with Jillian and Jeff or anyone else, as long as you're out there trying to live the best version, whatever that is. And I don't even know, for everyone, it's a little bit different for everyone, but there's definitely a huge spiritual component to this. And I think that's really the theme of what you were talking about, and we love it. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And everyone else, we will be right back. Jillian, are you ready to hit the button?
I am.
After this.
Go!
So in fairness, Jillian, I didn't know if you were ready to hit the button or not, because, normally we have someone backstage doing that, but unfortunately Veronica's sick today. So hopefully
She's not well. I feel
better.
bad.
Yeah.
I hope she feels better, because I'm very grateful for Veronica.
Oh, me too, actually. Veronica's amazing. And also, we need her to get better before we go to Puerto Rico, or it'll be really sad, because we'll be in Puerto Rico without her and she'll be homesick. That would be really sad.
All three of us are going. And I want to thank Gladys for hanging out on the show today. Gladys kept making comments. She's telling us you all are so kind and nice. Thank you very much. May God bless you all.
Oh,
and then
also,
she sent us a bunch of emojis. I love emojis.
I know, right? And she told us she was working on the best version of herself, which we think is great.
Yeah.
And she also asked a little bit before that how to properly pronounce Bracha's last name, and I messed it up. I know you said it right. I messed it up, but yes, Goetz, like Getz is how it's pronounced. So that's it, Gladys. Now you know. But yes, definitely check out her books. They're very affordable too. I mean, children's books usually aren't terribly expensive, but these seem very reasonable. So.
And Gladys also wants to know if we can take her to Puerto Rico. But
well, you're certainly welcome to go to Puerto Rico.
You can come.
It is actually not something that's in our budget to take. That's great. She's also saying she can be really handy, which I'm sure that's true. So I wish that we could take everyone who wanted to go to Puerto Rico with us, but unfortunately that is not quite in the budget. But it is actually very cheap to fly to Puerto Rico right now. Depending on where you're flying from, Gladys, it might be as cheap as like $300 or $400. So you could go to Puerto Rico and go to the beach and hope you run into us. That's one option.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Jeff, do you have any plans I know we're all talking about going to Puerto Rico.
Do I have any plans for this week? Yes, I'm going to Puerto Rico for a month, less than 1 week from today.
When are you leaving?
I'm leaving at like 5 a.m. on Monday. So.
On Monday. Okay.
Yes, I think that's the same day you're leaving as well, right? Monday.
Yeah. So I don't think, guys, we're going to try to have a show next Monday.
Oh no, I'm going to be here for the show.
But
actually,
it's going to be to the finish line.
We're having Mark Thornton back on next week.
So Mark and you might be alone, just depending on how long it takes to get out of the airport.
I arrive at noon. So assuming that I have internet at the Airbnb, I should be good to go for our regular show at 7 p.m. Eastern time, because Puerto Rico is it's not actually Eastern time zone. It's weird, right? Because they just don't have daylight savings time. So right now they're in the Eastern time zone. Other times they're not. But so if we don't have a show next week, we will get Mark on again, because the thing is, Jillian, the reason we're having Mark back, and we don't usually have people back on the show.
No, this is our first repeat.
He left us a giant cliffhanger at the end of his episode. Remember that? He
Huge
said
cliffhanger about a murder.
He said, next time I come back on your show, I will tell you about the time a cruise ship employee murdered a guest. That's what he said.
Now listen.
And then he looked like a cruise ship employee murdered. I don't think it was Carnival. So Carnival people, I promise I wasn't trying to throw you guys under the bus or something.
I will tell you this. I will tell you this. This is not exactly Last Life Ever material. It's not our typical show, but it was such a great cliffhanger. We were
We
like,
didn't have a choice. We were
We
like,
didn't.
oh, I guess we got to come back and see how that goes. But Mark's an interesting guy, and he had really interesting perspective. But that might be a shorter episode because we'll be settling into Puerto Rico, and so it's a good time for us just to, you know, kind of have a little informal hangout. And besides that, remember about Mark's story. Mark went to the Philippines sort of almost on a whim and moved there with like $600. And, you know, I'm looking at Puerto Rico and going, man, I'm not sure I can spend a month in Puerto Rico with more than $600. And he just moved there with $600. So it might be a good encouragement for us if we're feeling kind of poor when we're in Puerto Rico. We'll be able to be like, well, if Mark can do it on 600, we can probably make our 2 or 3 weeks. Or because that's how long you're staying, right? Like 3 weeks?
I'm staying for 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
And we're going all over the island. So
no, did I tell you I got a rental car? I'm excited about that. It's been very difficult to find rental cars.
yeah, it's like everything on the island is scarce these days.
It does seem that way. All right. Well, listen, we are so far off topic, Jillian. So I think what we should do is we should just briefly circle back on our guest from today, who was amazing.
Dude, that was something else.
Yeah.
That was like, I got to go and
expectations.
Exceeded expectations. Really thought we were going to be talking about how to become a children's author today. I got way more than I bargained for. I'm going to literally, for those of you that don't know, typically in the last couple of months, what I've been doing is every evening taking my children on to go to the playground. And what I do is I do laps around the playground. And sometimes I talk to Jeff Holst. Sometimes
I feel like you talk to me most of the time, which is good because that's when I get my steps too.
Yeah.
Whenever my phone rings, I go, oh, Jillian must be at the playground. Time to walk outside and go around the block a few times.
And I will probably still call Jeff, but I also use that time to do a walking meditation, to listen to the Bible. And today I am going to meditate on those five things. I think it is.
Do you remember what they are? Did you write them down?
I did not write them down. I was intently listening, but I'm going to start with gratitude. And I know it started with gratitude.
There was the gratitude
love.
theme. Well, It wasn't that. I think it was great. I mean, we just bring her back on and ask her again to repeat it for us. But I think it was gratitude at every level. So I think it was like a physical, like, you know, sustenance type thing. And then the next level was like connection to other humans,
which turns into love, which is
right. Love.
Yeah.
And then the next one was something about purpose or something like that. And then it was a creativity, and then finally transcendence. So I think that's 5. How did I do, Brock? What do you think? You nod for me. I can see you. She says I did good. She's giving us the thumbs up in the backstage.
Well, listen, we got to go anyhow. It's getting late.
It is. We've gone way over, but it's been really nice talking to you, Jillian Sidoti. Thank you so much for being part of the Last Life Ever podcast.
I'm very grateful for the Last Life Ever podcast, and I'm
very grateful
you, Jeffrey.
For you. I was just gonna say that. You took the words really out of my mouth. I actually am. Just to be clear, you are without a doubt one of my favorite people, and I feel very connected to you. So I've at least made it to level 2, and I'm gonna keep working on moving my way up. So thank you so much for being here. And anything else? Good.
No, everybody have a great rest of your week.
Yes, and don't forget to live the best version of your last life ever.